I'm do a quick overview of sports science, and it's going to be mainly from the perspective of a football manager. But the stuff it can be applied to most sports and most athletes. So start off with goal setting, like it's one of the main things in psychology, most common things, especially at lower level. I don't think it's fully understood or fully utilized in the best way. So a goal, an outcome goal, a manager might use be to, finishing the top three in the league, and they'll write that down, might stick it up in the changing rooms. That's my goal. That's the team goal. Everyone, that's our goal. That's an outcome goal. That's a big kind of macro outcome goal, and on its own, it can create a lot of anxiety and frustration because you can't control that outcome to a certain extent. There's too many other variables that you can't control in terms of how other teams are performing. What you need to do is firstly you want to break that down into smaller time phased individual goals for each player, and as a manager set your own goals as well, and you also need some process goals. So how are you going to achieve that? So I don't know if this is going to come out backwards with the camera. So we've got outcome goals, smart, so specific, measurable, attainable. I can't remember what the R stands for. Time phased, but Google smart goals and I'll tell you. Repeatable maybe, I don't know. And then you got your process goals. So some outcome goal, top three, how am I going to achieve that? So, and it can get really quite complex, but you want the more specific the better, so don't let that put you off. So as a manager, my own process goals, first off, start with my pre-season ones. So in pre-season, I'm going to get everyone to fill in a questionnaire. It'll give me an idea of their kind of psychological profile and their physiological profile as well. Just stuff like old injuries. Do you have lower back problems? Do you get nervous before big games? What motivates you? If you Google like a psychological questionnaire for sports science, and one for like a general fitness one as well, you want fitness testing as well. Another process goal could be fitness testing. So from that, they'll give you baseline, what's people's power like, their agility, flexibility, and from there, the manager's process goal could be to carry out and give everyone fitness testing, and from there you can dish out individual process goals, perhaps monthly ones, and give them places to improve on their power, speed, endurance, VO2 max, and then do your fitness testing again every couple of months, whatever it is. So going back as a manager, so my process goals for pre-season are to fitness test my players and to submit a psychological questionnaire to my players and like a general questionnaire about fitness and previous injuries. You want to as well identify any obstacles or hurdles that you're going to have to overcome to achieve your outcome goals. So are you going to get any resistance from the questionnaire? If you like, people not going to want to do it. If that's the case, how can you handle that? It's a bit like if you go on a diet as a player. What are the obstacles? Like if you work, people are going to bring in crap food, or people want to go to the pub and eat crap food. Dips in motivation. You need like a way of handling all the obstacles and hurdles that you're going to encounter. So bear that in mind in your process goals as well, because that is part of how you're going to achieve your outcome goal. So as a football manager, my main outcome goal is to finish in the top three. Two of my main pre-season process goals are to carry out, get your players to submit a questionnaire and also to carry out some fitness tests. Okay, so and then we can go into more specific season-long ones or in the mid-season if you like. But let's talk about general process goals I could have as a manager. So I'll tell you a story from MMA. Last time I competed in MMA was in Manchester, which was a bit of a shock in terms of I used to only compete in South Wales before that, and the lads were dead sound, dead nice. Bit different in Manchester. And there was one of the coaches, I use that term loosely. I remember specifically, there's a lad in side control on the bottom struggling, and his coach was just swearing at him and just telling him how like rubbish he was. It's not going to help. What that fighter needed was a specific technical instruction of how to get out of side control, hopefully based on something that he drilled before in training. And that looked ridiculous to me from MMA, but you get that all the time in football, where a manager just gets frustrated and starts bollocking one of the players. And that's, to me, a hallmark of a crap manager. You need technical feedback at times, and you need it based on the player's psychological profile as well. And that's not to overcomplicate it. It just means if you've got a nervous 16-year-old and he's having a bad game and it's a big game, he's gonna be nervous. He's anxious. That's why he's playing badly. So you give him a bollocking, that's gonna make it even worse. He's gonna play even worse. Whereas if you've got someone who, in the profile or just by the body language, is lazy and arrogant, all right, maybe that's when they need a bollocking. But you need to be specific in your feedback, and if possible, make it technical. If a player's doing something wrong, if he's something he can't, the defender, if your player's the attacker and he's having problems with the defender, marking him out of the game. Specifically, if you're a good manager, you want to be able to see, like, this is what's happening, this is how we rectify it. Shouting doesn't help. And if it's not something you drill before to overcome this issue, then can you incorporate that into your training? Is that something you can drill with that player after the game? So take notes. So 2 season-long process goals could be to give technical feedback specific to the player. Well, I say technical feedback immediately during games, and it could be identify the psychological profiles of my players and what kind of feedback they need during the game. Anxious versus overconfident might be just a basic one. So bollocking versus calming them down, and even reassuring them. And yeah, taking notes on during the game on what you need to drill might be in a third process goal. So you got 5 there, 2 pre-season things and 3 that you could do season long to ultimately hit your main outcome goal of finishing in the top 3. Yeah, and then each player as well should have their own outcome goals. The easiest way to do that will be based on the questionnaire and based on the fitness testing, if you've got the facility to do that. So one player, like a goalkeeper, be a good goal would be to increase the vertical jump. On the vertical jump test, increase their score, if you like, by 2 inches by end of July, something like that. And then the process goal would be, right, how he's going to do that, so he can incorporate plyometrics into his training twice a week, maybe even Olympic lifts or some basic Olympic lifts like power shrugs, because it takes a while to learn the techniques for those. And then retest and see if it's working. If it hasn't worked, then reassess the program. So that's 8 minutes, and that's 8 minutes on the basics of goal setting, which is one of many parts of sports psychology. Let's have a look at. Let's do one more. Nutrition. So drawing a triangle, I like to call it the Griffiths Pyramid. I don't know if it's been done before, I think, but I'm going to name it the Griffiths Pyramid. So the bottom, you need a good base. So my base, health and well-being should be there, really, because if health and well-being is related to inflammation, I'd say digestive health's a big one, because if your gut's bad, it's going to affect the rest of your body and even your brain. The vagus nerve feeds back as well. And hydration, general hydration levels, that'd be 3 things for well-being. Feeding into those, of course, what are you eating? Are you getting enough vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, all that rubbish, all that stuff. But the outcomes or the kind of markers of health and well-being would be inflammation, digestive health, and hydration. There'll be 3 basic ones at least. So rather than just focus on, most sports nutrition focuses on just pre and post training, pre and post game, which I think is wrong, because your performance, you can only get so high if your base isn't there, or just if you don't know about the Griffiths triangle. So health and well-being. Inflammation, how can you reduce that? So if you've got inflammation, that's going to give you a bit of brain fog, it's going to make your decision making poor during the games, it's going to make you demotivated. So inflammation, if that's an issue, let's look at that on its own as a symptom. So I'd recommend looking at high EPA omega-3 supplement. So you got omega-3, like typically in fish oil, Omega-3 can divide into DHA, which is good for your brain, and EPA, which is quite a strong anti-inflammatory. And then from that, you've also got curcumin is quite a good if you're happy to take supplements. Turmeric is great, but reports coming out of India at the moment, it's quite high in heavy metals like lead. Curcumin is the main bit of turmeric that's anti-inflammatory, good for your stomach, good for your brain if you're heading the football a lot as well. For something called amyloid, beta amyloid plaques that form in your brain from heading and taking shots during fighting. So that's not a bad one to consider as well. Rosehip is pretty cheap and that's pretty effective. And tart cherry juice shots as well. Good anti-inflammatory. You don't have to do all those, but you could try one of them and see if it helps. Helps with your chain of thought, and if you just ache, generally less. Your water. People don't know this, but the word plumber comes from plum, which is Latin for lead, and piping, even in the UK, used to be made of lead. And if you're living in an old house, like from the 60s or before, excuse me a sec, you've probably still got lead piping. So say have at least 2 litres of water a day, but I'd say make it filtered. If you're rich, just buy spring water. That's full of nutrients as well. Or if you're mega rich, get your own spring. Otherwise, just filter it. I'm a bit funny about tap water, especially giving it to the kids. Because we've got an old house. Yeah, for hydration, get a 2 litre. You want a glass bottle really as well, because you don't want to be reusing a plastic bottle because of BPA. And make sure you get through that each day. Just of your basics. Put a bit of salt in there, Himalayan salt as well for your hydration, and you're good to go. Digestive health, that's a massive issue for a lot of people, but it's also really complicated. So you got something called leaky gut syndrome, which wasn't acknowledged for a while as something that existed. But it is now because loads of studies. Basically, your gut wall can get damaged, and then stuff can get through from your gut and get into your body proper, if you like, that shouldn't, and that causes loads of problems with inflammation. Glutamine on empty stomach's good for that. Collagen's good for that. Bone broth. That'd be kind of your foundation to get a healthier gut. Then your probiotics, so fermented foods, good like sauerkraut. But I used to have IBS, but there's a product called Livespo, and that's probably the better one. One I found the best. Another one called VSL3 as well, really strong probiotics. I was taking sauerkraut, felt a bit better. Took Livespo. I felt dead ill for about a week, and then after that, everything's running perfectly. So I recommend having a look at that, and you just feel so much better if you're not like bloated and feeling sick all the time. You just feel much better, and your performance is probably going to be better as well. Digestive health, yeah, and then you got food, supplements, fibre. Another thing I want to mention, nutrition, is people think vegetable oils are good for you, but they're not, especially sunflower oil. And especially if you're heating it, you're cooking with it, it's really pro-inflammatory. Have a look at vegetable oils and when you're cooking with them. It's a bit controversial, but from what I've read, if it's solid at room temperature, it's good for frying. If it's liquid, even olive oil, it can be quite toxic. So something to look into. Don't take my word for any of this. Have a look into it yourself. There's a good website called examine.com for looking at supplements. Google Scholar, you can look at the research yourself. Selfhack.com as well, I like as well. It's got a good summary of all the research for different supplements and different types of food. Excuse me. And then kind of midway, perhaps, you've got adaptogens like ginseng, rhodiola rosea, reduce cortisol, help you improve focus, make you feel generally better. Nootropics, I'm quite into. You need to check that these aren't banned by any governing bodies and stuff as well. But nootropics, you got stuff like alpha GPC, like a type of choline. It's really good for focus. PQQ, even coenzyme Q10. They basically make you. an organelle, it's called, in your cells, called a mitochondria, which helps your body produce energy. And rather than giving you, like, caffeine gives you kind of neurotransmitters directly, and that gives you energy. Whereas you can kind of make your mitochondria more efficient, give you energy as well, and it can also help improve your focus and your cognitive functions. Acetyl-L-carnitine is really good for that as well, but that does unfortunately, that upsets my stomach. That's a really effective one. But most of these as well can have side effects, so have a look into that. Like, there is some sketchy research saying acetyl-L-carnitine might be linked to bowel cancer because it's found in meat, but I don't know if that's true. And then at the top of the Griffiths pyramid, you've got stuff like creatine, beta-alanine, your carbs, hydration. So your match hydration or your fight hydration, just basics on hydration. So I won't go into gastric emptying and all that, but you want a carbohydrate drink. So usually you want maltodextrin. Give it a pinch of salt. You want it about 5%. So if you've got 100 millilitres, it'd be 5 grams of maltodextrin and a pinch of salt. But you want more than that, so triple it, whatever, to however size your sports drink's going to be. And then the most you can generally take on board and your body can use without weeing it out straight away be about 150 millilitres every 15 minutes. So rather than like drinking 2 litres before a match, you're going to be sipping on it. And every opportunity you get during the game, just have a mouthful of whatever it is. If someone, when the physio comes on and all nicking the drinks, that's what you should be doing. Half time as well. Half time, it's just going to zip over onto a very basic physiology. We've done a fitness testing. Just say it should be position specific, so goalkeeper, VO2 max doesn't really matter. Half time, physiology can go on forever as well. Muscle temperature half time. Muscle temperature drops at half time with a lot of players, and there was a study I looked at saying that reduces your sprint performance, which is like the top speed and the amount of sprinting players were doing. Also increases the risk of injury. Just think about that half time. If you're sat down, your body starts cooling down. You've been sweating, so that's going to make you cool down even more. As soon as your sweat starts to get cold, your muscles are going to get cold. So is there a way of offsetting that? It's Thailand. I've got ginger tea there. Ginger, they have, for the cold season, they'll have foods that cool you down. Hot season, they'll have foods like ginger that warm you up. And there is evidence that, like, for example, chewing on ginger or drinking a ginger drink. I'm not saying you should do this because it might not be practical along with your sports drink. But for example, that may be one intervention. Chewing on a bit of ginger can increase the temperature of your extremities, like your surface of your hands, and your muscle temperature. Something to bear in mind. You could just increase the heat in the room, or you got to balance it against dehydration as well. So just keeping them moving probably be better. Just keep them standing, moving around a little bit, keep them warm. Might offset that increased risk of injury and decrease in performance. And that's the main stuff. Math stats, very quickly, because I find this quite interesting. And it's a way to make data-driven tactical decisions. So, very basic example. We've got Everton from the 1990s, Kevin Sheedy, I think, or late 80s, can't remember. You've got Tony Cottee, Graham Sharp up front. Luton, I can't remember who was up front, maybe Mickey Quinn. So Everton, they've got 8 strikers and they've got 8 defenders. Luton, relative terms, crap defenders. Sorry if this is offensive to any Luton fans. And crap strikers. So when Luton get the ball, because their crap strikers are going to defend the Ace Everton defenders, they've only got a 1% chance of scoring when they get a half chance. Wherever that, it's not really objective term, half chance, but let's just go with it. Whereas Everton have got a 10% chance. Okay, so based on that bit of data they may have acquired from analysing video of games, the Luton manager says, right, we're going to close down the game, we're going to keep players in our half, and we're going to prevent Everton getting as many chances as possible. So they managed to reduce the game to 5 chances to Everton. So that means there's a good chance, about a 50% chance, the game's going to end in a 0-0 draw, which is a good result for Luton. Especially if it's like a cup game, because then penalties and who knows who's going to win. But if they said, "Oh, let's just go for it, let's just play cavalier and enjoy it or whatever," an open game, there's 50 chances for both sides. Luton are therefore likely to lose 5-0 or 5-1 based on law of averages. So that's a really basic, but also not very good example of how you could use math statistics to make data-driven decisions about your tactics, other than using your gut or whatever it is that football managers do to make tactical decisions. Because you can look at corners, look at throw-ins, how should we use our throw-ins, what type of corners produce what result, and you can also look at what we should do with the ball in X, Y, and Z situation, because how do we concede goals in terms of counter-attacks. So again, going back to our goals, if you're taking notes, perhaps on video in the game and analyse it, that could be a goal for helping you get in the top three, would be analysing and making data-driven tactical decisions. So that's a quick 20-minute overview of sports science. I was going to do this in a spare room with a whiteboard, but I remembered I haven't got either, so this is in my old room with a notepad. So I hope that's been informative. If anyone cares, I've got a first-class degree from Loughborough in sports science and a master's in nutrition from the University of Liverpool. And yeah, if you want to talk, I want to improve my public speaking skills. So I'll do some free talks or for petrol costs in the summer. Give me some chance to put some PowerPoint presentations together, so I'm not doing this. Get in touch if you're interested. Cheers.